Hey, you're gonna get a funky view. I have a little blonde boy. You can see his little head on my lap. But I'm gonna answer Smiley's question. And Smiley asked about my lean meat and my people who do more of a fatty meat. You were asking whenever that changed and just kind of the story behind it. So when I first went keto and carnivore, fat, you got to add fat. You can't get enough fat. There's no such thing as too much fat. And if you can't poop, you need to eat more fat. It was kind of a big thing. So I started in 2019. And well, let me go back. When I started in 2017, everything was about the keto calculator. It tells you your calories, your carbs, your fat, your protein, how much you should strive to eat. So then I lost weight, and fast forward to 2 years later after I broke some bones and had surgeries, and anyway, gained back some weight. And then 2019, the trend was it's keto. You have to add fat. You need to add fat so your body can metabolize fat. So for 2 years, I did keto, and then 2 months keto, 22 months carnivore. So it was adding fat. Oh, you got to have the fat. You need more fat. You need more fat. Then I started watching somebody, and it was Keto in the Chaos. I was watching her, and she was talking about how she does more of a moderate fat approach. And about that time, I started watching Kim Howerton, and by that time, I had lost 64 pounds. And I had stalled. I stalled 7 months, and I'm like, everybody's talking all this fat. And here this Keto in the Chaos is talking about how she does moderate fat. And I'm like, what if I do lean fat? Not no fat, but like still beef, but do 93% ground beef. And instead of doing all this 73% and 80%. So so I lost 94, 96, whatever pounds. And that's what I was eating whenever I was counting calories. So when you count calories, the leaner meat has less fat. And leaner meat has less fat. Did you know that? It also has less calories. So by choosing, I needed bulk on my plate. So by choosing the lean meat, I got to have a larger amount of meat for fewer calories, and it was a bigger amount on my plate. So as I'm eating, I was eating, and there's this large amount of food on my plate. So that's why I was eating the lean meat, because I was counting calories, and my eyes and brain, I need to see bulk. So that was why I went to lean. And this is not scientific. My channel this is what I did. This is not what you have to do. Okay? Remember that always. This is what I did. This is what my brain thinks. But this isn't necessarily what everybody else should do or what everybody else should think. In my brain, you eat. The reason why we're shifting to fat burning is that we want to burn the fat on our bodies. When people eat like pasta and all the high carb foods, and when they eat those high carb foods, then hang on, my mama's texting me. So when they're eating high carb foods, you hear people say, oh, I carved up before the race. That's because that's where their energy comes from, because they're eating higher carb food. If you're wanting to burn fat, if you eat a bunch of fat, then you're burning the fat that you're eating. Now, again, this is not scientific. This is my thought process. If I'm burning the fat that I'm eating, I'm not burning the fat that I'm wearing. So in my brain, like I said, she was moderate fat. So I went more. If you go back to those videos, if you go back to my playlist, and it'll say keto and counting calories. At the end of all those videos are my macros, so you can see exactly how much fat I was eating. Offhand, I can't remember. But now I'm not saying a person should eat no fat, because I need bulk and I need to feel full. But by eating the 93% ground beef, it's leaner, it's less calories, and in my mind, my body was burning the fat on my body as fuel instead of burning the fat that I was eating as fuel. So, is it scientific? No. Is it right? I don't know. I just know that that's how my brain thought about it once I saw somebody who was not fat, you got to add more fat, you got to add more fat. Whenever I kind of stepped out of that fat bubble and I looked around and thought about it, it was like, oh, well, duh. So is that the right thing? I have no idea. But what I can say is, by eating the 93% fat-free 93% ground beef and counting calories, that is how I lost 90 some odd pounds. So that was the option I took. In my opinion, when you start a diet, however you eat when you first start is not how you're going to eat when you end. So you kind of have to trial and error some things, because, I started off keto. Then I went carnivore. Then I went back to keto and counting calories. Now I'm just low carb. But even if you start with one thing and stay with the same thing, in the end, you're still going to have to eat less of whatever it is you're eating. So if you start at 340 pounds like I did, I could not have, even though I was eating, we'll say maybe I was eating 2,500 calories to lose, and I was still losing weight. Well, whenever I got down to 200 pounds, I could not have eaten that same amount of calories and lost weight. So now in the carnivore world, that kind of trend has come and gone. Some of them, they get on this kick of high fat. Well, even look at Kelly Hogan in the carnivore world. When I first started, she was eating 8 McDonald's patties every day, 8 of the quarter pounders. Well, those aren't drowned in fat. Now, sometimes she did put some bacon grease on it, but she wasn't constantly adding fat. Well, next thing you know, I'm watching, and she is becoming a health coach or a weight loss coach. And then she starts doing some lean days and regular days. So even she is experimenting. And meanwhile, you have that other chick, I can't think of her name. I don't remember her name. People, something anyway. She's just fat. You gotta have fat. You gotta have high fat. Well, she ain't but this big around. And she got into this way of eating because of her mother having some health issues. So I think, a person has to do what works for them, but you are correct. In the keto community at various times, it's high fat. But do you know what keto was started for? Little kids who are having a seizure disorder, who couldn't take their seizure medication and be, even with seizure medication, they were not seizure free. So that high fat diet was great for these little kids, teenagers, who were having seizure disorders, and it was doing whatever it was doing for them in their body, and it was working great. But I think each person is an individual, and because my hunger signals are broken, I can't just eat fat, because I will eat until I'm literally ready to throw up. It's just how I am until I get myself cured. So so keto was started as a high fat diet, and it was for little kids who have seizures, but then it has morphed and grown, and so people are able to lose weight, but they're losing weight because it's a more holistic way of eating. Not a matter of just adding fat, but a holistic way of eating, in that it's pure meat, vegetables, whole foods, not boxed junk food. And for heaven's sakes, not the boxed keto this, keto that. Those should be like a rare treat, like once a week or once a month or whatever. Those are not granola bars, the keto bars and all that stuff. those are definitely not something that a person who's working on improving their health should be consuming more than once or twice a week. I say that. By the same token, look at me. I eat G Hughes 2-3 times a day. So don't listen to what I say, but that's just my 2 cents about it. So yes, when I first started my maintenance, I went to 73% because one of the things that I was told that by Kim Howerton, who I follow a lot, one of the things that she had said, I said, how do I add back calories? I was so scared to add back calories. And she said, add back calories with higher fat, food with higher fat. Start off with adding more fat. So I did that by switching from 93% to 80%. And then I went to 73%. But I noticed that my scale was creeping up a little bit. So that's whenever I switched back to 80 and 85%. So that's why I'm kind of tinkering with 80 and 85% to see what that does. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. And again, that's not scientific. That's just my opinion. Okay, bye.